my first step ever podcast, and I am Ishani Nigam, your host and producer of the podcast. This podcast is made for all the disruptors around the globe who know that they are made for something, for that one thing, but fear of embarrassment, fear of rejection, the fear of fear itself holds us back at some point in time. But hey, those are the only milestones that if we cross, we are there to take our first steps. So, welcome on this journey with me where I interview people from across the globe so that they can share their story, their challenges, and you know that even you can surpass yours. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome on my first step ever. I'm very excited to host this session today because we have a storyteller, brand strategist, and someone who has really stuck to what he wanted to do in his life and really taken that step towards his dream, towards his goals. I always say that it has been really amazing experience, interacting with such 150 plus guest speakers from across the globe to uncover their journey, their small steps towards the big first step that they have taken, and how they have kept going on, moving on, besides all the challenges that they face. And my friends, if you're listening to this, that is the key to your success, that you need to build conviction and keep believing and keep taking actions towards what you want to do. And how we're going to do that? By listening to this amazing conversation, diving deep into this amazing conversation with Chase Friedman, all the way from LA, USA. Chase, welcome on my first step ever.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's completely my pleasure and an honor, and I'm very excited for this conversation today because I believe that with every unique individual that we have on this podcast, we get to know the unique ways of how they have really created their own journey and the different ways that they have found out to live their dream. So, welcome again on my first step ever. And before we move in and ask you the first question, I like to kind of give a bit of a sneak peek about you to our listeners today. So, Chase Friedman is an impassioned brand storyteller and strategist who believes in the potential for businesses to do good and do well. As the founder of Vanquish Media Group, he has bridged the gap between inspired branded content and digital marketing activation, transforming audiences into brand ambassadors. Now, he is the person who has sort of, I think I would say, mastered the art of really understanding the audiences, their heart, their mind, and that's the way that he can help people and the brands to capture their audience's mind, which is quite a skill, I would say. And with a diverse client portfolio, including VC backed startups, SMBs, and nonprofits, Chase provides strategic brand marketing leadership, resulting in sustainable growth and societal impact. Now, he has produced over 1,500 branded content assets with over 500 million views, resulting in 45 million in revenue and donations. Chase, there's lots that's going in over here. And I see that you are very passionate about your mission, which continues as a coach and consultant for aspiring business owners and entrepreneurs and is a member of 1% of the planet and serves on the board of advisors for the non-for-profit Film to Future Foundation. Wow, that is a lot going on in here. But let's trace our steps back to your childhood. I'm sure all this that you have built has taken some time, taken some experiments, deliberations, and some situations that has happened around you. So we would love to understand that how it all began and why you're doing what you're doing today. So Chase, please take us through your early childhood days.
Great question. Thank you for that lovely intro. I mean, look, I think the biggest thing to remember is that the path is not ever what you expect it to be or as easy as you might like it to be. My career has taken so many different pivots and turns and successes and failures. So it can be messy, but I think the key to this is resilience. For me, starting out, this was my original path was not in marketing or branding or any of these different things. It was actually in storytelling. I spent the first part of my career as a filmmaker, writing, directing, producing film and television, music videos, commercials. I loved telling stories and I loved the impact that it had for me when I was a young child, getting to watch things in the movies or on television and making me feel in a mode and be inspired and activate and the effect that it has on the audience. And so obviously that kind of parlayed into working and consulting with brands on helping them tell better stories to engage audiences in deeper, more emotional, and meaningful ways. But I would say this all kind of began, when you're asking about my childhood, I think this stemmed from a lesson that my parents, really my mother, would always tell me. They both worked in that corporate setting for many, many years. They did very well for themselves. They provided for their family, but I knew this, and they knew this was not their passion. This was not their purpose. We're at a very interesting time right now where we have the ability as a generation, as a people, to lean into something a little bit more. Hopefully, seek something more for yourself in your career and your business than more than just a paycheck. But the mantra that my mother would always tell me is, whatever you do in life, make sure you do what you love. And it was simple as that, right? She didn't say, become a lawyer, become an accountant, become a doctor, just do what you love. And I didn't know what that meant at first. I was trying to figure out, and I think still trying to figure out
Yeah.
exactly what really kind of hits the heartstrings. But that was the initial motivation to continue to search and seek for that thing, that purpose that makes me feel alive and helps me do the greatest good in the world and in the community for my clients. And so that what I love has taken different shapes and forms. But I think that resilience to continue to dig a little deeper, get a little more uncomfortable, and honest with yourself, and it's certainly a worthy pursuit.
I am so excited to know, beginning for you itself was quite a strong foundation. I mean, coming from your mother who always told you that do what you love, and they did not give you a specific profession to follow. I mean, they did not tag you under something, because I think when we are growing up with along with our parents beside us, they definitely know the best for us when we are growing up, because they've seen our talents or what we are good at. So it's very easy for people to kind of come and tell you, oh, you're really good at this, how about you just do this. So I'm happy that there was kind of exploratory experimentation phase that you could take up around that time. And over here in during this kind of conversations in our podcast, I always kind of emphasize and ask our speakers, guest speakers, to kind of take us through the teenage days, when they were teen and coming into a full adult, becoming somewhere in the early 20s, because that's a very fuzzy time inside a mind, I would say. Even though you have an inkling about something, you know about something, but you're always questioning yourself. How was that for you?
Yeah, look, it's a great point. I think we're at this pivotal time in our teen years, even before and beyond, where there's this expectation, this societal expectation to figure out what you're going to be in life, right? To figure out what
Mm.
it is your one thing is going to be. And I couldn't say that I had that back then. I knew I had a love and a passion for movies and storytelling, but I had no access to that where I grew up. The college where I went didn't have a film program. I kind of made it myself. And I used to be hard on myself about that. I used to think, well, gosh, everyone around me seems to have it all figured out, and they have this clear path and this clear purpose. What is my thing? And I used to look at it as a deficit, but instead of just settling on something of the moment, I continued to search and seek. And I'll be honest, a lot of the folks that at the time I thought had it all figured out have either burnt out or changed careers multiple times, or come to me today and saying, hey, I'm sick of this job, this path, what can I do to change it? So I think you've got to be patient. You've got to be willing to be patient with yourself, not expect yourself to have all the answers early and often. The only way to really truly kind of get to this exploration is by trying different things and being staying uncomfortable and failing quite a bit, quite frankly. Saying early parts of your career, saying yes to a lot of things so that you can say no more at the later stages of your career.
Yes.
So yeah, I think as an aspiring filmmaker in my teen years, I looked at all these auteurs of film. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they've been doing it since they were 8 years old, and I'm way behind the curve. But that wasn't ever a reason to stop me or anyone from pursuing something they loved. And do I continue to do that now? No, it's taken a different shape and form. But I'd still like to say that kind of that passion for storytelling is in my blood. It's in my DNA. I just kind of utilize that skill in a different way.
I think, Chase, it takes a lot of guts to tell yourself that do not be so hard on yourself, and it is going to take time, and keep experimenting. Do not give up on what you really like at that point in time, when you're growing up. It's very, very scary time, that you feel like everyone has figured out, and that's what we feel. Not everyone has really got it figured out. Few things that you mentioned, I would like to reiterate over here is that, do not be hard on yourself, as you mentioned. Keep experimenting and say yes to a lot of things to begin with, so that you know that what is not your path, and you know that what is your path. It's like, clearing things out one after the other so you can understand where you can be. And you mentioned something very interesting, and I think I would like to ask a question about that, because that is something very challenging. You said that you did not have a film school where you grew up, but then you made it. You somehow made it. I would love to hear that story. How did you make it? Because it's not easy. So how did you create your own pathway to achieve what you really wanted to?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have any people, I didn't have any friends or family or connections that I knew that were in this industry. And if you're in Los Angeles in the entertainment industry and in Hollywood, it can be a very insular community. It can feel, quite frankly, hopeless to try to break into it, at
Yes.
times. And so I grew up in South Florida, kind of near Miami, kind of far from it. But through college, I convinced my professors to let me do short films instead of essays. I spent my free time kind of renting out free equipment from the TV production studio to do student films. I got access and experience every possible way that I could. And that only comes with wanting something so bad and having that burning passion, desire to learn,
Yes.
and not take no for an answer, and probably did some things that I shouldn't have. But that carried on in terms of, for one summer, I drove myself out to Los Angeles and did a bunch of unpaid internships with different companies to just learn. And it was it wasn't glamorous. It was grunt work. It was, doing kind of lowly PA duties, but it was great exposure to see and learn from people that were doing it and successful in the industry. When I graduated college, I came out to Los Angeles and moved myself out here. Knew nobody, had no friends, had no family, didn't have an apartment, didn't have a job. I bet on myself. I continued to bet on myself. And I was able to get a position as starting at the bottom ranks for a producer and a production company as a PA. And I worked my way up. And same thing, at the time, I began to meet and befriend many other people, students, filmmakers that were at these pretty prestigious film schools, USC, AFI. And I felt kind of as an outsider. I felt like, oh my gosh, they're getting this great education. They have this great network, these great tools and supplies and training. What do I have? But I continue to stick with it. And I said, all right, I'm going to give myself a year. And if I can continue to kind of make my way and learn, continue to build in this industry, I'm going to stick with it. Otherwise, maybe I'll go back to school, film school. But I was able to work my way up. I call it kind of the school of the hard knocks. I learned by getting my hands dirty, getting in the trenches, doing every imaginable job in production and post. And fast forward a few years later, the friends that were graduating from these prestigious film schools were coming out in the real industry and had no clue what to do or how to apply these skills because they'd been doing it in an academic format. I was doing it in a real world application. And so it started to give me that confidence of, okay, my path doesn't look like everybody else's, but I found a way to make it my own. And I bet on myself, and I learned a heck of a lot in the process.
This is such a liberating and empowering story, Chase. I would love our listeners and viewers to, pause for a second and reflect on what we have heard right now. It's a pure journey of someone having immense burning desire of wanting to really do what they want to, and finding ways, researching, looking into the kind of people. And you did multiple internships, unpaid internships, so that you can build that expertise, or maybe build that portfolio of work, the body of work that you can go and show to other people, and most importantly to create a network, because that's the most important thing anyway. And you also build trust with the people that you work with, and that does the work, the word of mouth. So these are some amazing learnings. So everyone who's listening to us right now, if you are wondering that how can I break into a profession that I really want to, and if it is a little odd part to it, there are certain professions that that this is the way kind of to achieve that thing. That's amazing. Go to it, because that's some relief for you. But if there's a profession that you feel, oh no, I don't know how to kind of work around that, probably we have got a little bit of example of how you can work towards it. That keep looking for ways, keep try and get some hands-on experience and build that network around, and give yourself a time frame. I think that was a good I think advice. If I can share from your story what I've learned, that it's important to have a time frame as well when you're going forward, so that you can keep pivoting what's working, what's not working. So from there on, Chase, you started off working in your career as a filmmaker in that particular era, I would say, in your still in your early 20s, and slowly and steadily you started getting that feeling of that you want to do something more than that. How did that transition really happen for you?
I think, look, I have always loved the craft of storytelling. Unfortunately for me, I didn't love the business side of it, the culture of the entertainment industry out here. It's pretty ruthless. It's pretty cutthroat. It's not for everybody. A lot of politics, and so it was a hard decision to kind of make that transition for me. It was leaving something that I set out to do, to be successful in, that I worked really hard to kind of break into and ascend. And I had opportunities that I walked away from. I walked away from some great opportunities to direct certain projects or to join certain production companies because it didn't feel right. It didn't feel, like you were saying, it didn't feel kind of truly kind of connected to kind of that greater purpose. That led me to, this transition into working with businesses and brands on their storytelling. But guess what? Similar path. I had no prior experience. I had no formal education. I had no network connections in this branding, advertising, marketing sphere. But I continued to say yes to opportunities. At first I was creating
Love this.
commercials and content, branded videos, and clients would continue to say, "Oh, this is great. We love this content, but what do we do with it?" Right? Well, can you help us launch a social media campaign and an ad campaign and build a website and all these different things? And I had never done any of those things before. But of course I said, yeah, of course, sure, I can do it. So, again, I bet on myself. And that seems to be a recurring theme, is
Which
jumping
is great.
headfirst into a new experience and a new business and a new industry that, quite frankly, I don't care what it is that you do. I believe much more in the hustle and the hard work and the passion for learning that craft than the technical knowledge. That can come. You can always learn, especially now. You can learn that anywhere from anyone practically. What you can't learn, what you can't replicate is that hustle. It's that staying power, that resilience to kind of continue to work through it even when shit gets ugly. So that, fast forward snowballed into, say, having a lot of yeses turned into, all of a sudden I had kind of a thriving small boutique digital marketing branding agency.
Wow.
Continuing to learn to this day. But I think there's a little bit of that sense of that David versus Goliath mentality. I think there's a little bit of that underdog in me that kind of is maybe a little bit stubborn to prove to myself
Mm.
and to others that I can hang with just about anyone in my field. And it doesn't have to be, again, that same expected path that many others have taken.
I firstly thank you so much for being so candid and being so real and authentic with us. I think it takes a lot of our courage to accept the fact that the career that once you started off that you really wanted to be in, and you've somehow made it and you're thriving in that business, and then you realize that the certain aspects are not working. Many a times we just keep going and moving on because we think that, oh, this is what we've worked so hard for, we've gotten comfortable over there because we're doing really well, people know us, we have projects coming in. So it gets very difficult, and I think you mentioned that you took that decision, but from where I'm looking at, it must have been a very tough decision for you to take at that point in time. I'm not sure, it could be
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It felt like I was giving up on a dream.
Yeah.
But I think I took solace in knowing that it didn't feel quite right anymore, right? It didn't feel quite aligned. And you're right. I think I've seen a lot of people continue to pursue a dream just because they said they would, and maybe not because it makes them feel good or fuels them like it used to. And it's not easy. It's not easy to push the reset button after you spend 5, 6,
Yes.
7 years doing kind of on one path and say, you know what, I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to start over. And I don't know what that looks like yet. To kind of jump into the void. That doesn't mean I had this unflinching courage or confidence. I've wrestled with this imposter syndrome most of my life and career, like many of us do.
Yes.
And yet we keep going. I think, my work today is, I consider my purpose to be helping others find and unlock their purpose so they can build a life and business of their dreams, no matter what that looks like. And to me, that feels like a calling. But that purpose is not finite. It's not printed and laminated on a wall. That's constantly evolving and changing. And if you're not constantly evolving and changing and willing to reflect on that, you're going to look, you're going to, and say, wow, where did I diverge off course so far? Where did it
Yeah.
kind of get me so far from my original vision? And I've been there too.
I can completely relate with that, Chase, because I think in the past I have been there too. And it takes a while to kind of really get a hold of yourself, sit with yourself, and understand that is this something really that, aligns with what you are as a person and your values? Because as we go ahead in a career, things keep changing. And we really do not have to stick to something if we feel the urge from within that this is not right. And this is not like everyone has a different path. For everyone who's listening to us, that it might work for you, that you are on the right path and you want to maybe excel in that particular field and you're doing great. But for the ones who feel that no, maybe this is not working out, I think this is a great story that Chase has shared from his real experience, that what it really took for him to take that decision, and when he did take that decision, how did he keep moving forward? Which brings us to your current journey, that what you're working towards, what you're doing. And I believe, as starting off, you said that you kept saying yes to everything. I see that you're very self-aware, you're very mature in the sense that that the attitude, your learning attitude, is something that will take you far ahead in life, and technical skills are something that can be learned. I think a lot of people get really fixated on the how of things. I have been there too, so I can really understand, but I see that you did not make that as a problem in your journey. In fact, you just kept going on, and that became like a thing in the back seat, that I can take care of that. And you did that. So can you please take us through, what do you we know that you really help, you coach people, you help brands, reach out to their audiences. But if you can take our listeners through the top 3 things that you do right now, which makes you feel amazing every day, that you do with your clients.
Yeah, that makes me feel amazing. It's different for, honestly, it's different for every client and every engagement. And I think that's what's kept me excited and eager to continue down this path. Is I haven't sort of, look, there is a sound philosophy, especially in my industry, in any industry, that, as they call it, the riches are in the niches, right? Like, you need to niche down a little bit and get very, very hyper focused, not only in terms of who you serve, but the industry and your tool set and all these kinds of things, right? Breeding specialists. But I've worked in just about every industry and vertical I can imagine. And I wouldn't say that there's a particular niche that I focus on. It's more of a quality of a person and an organization, someone that is seeking more for themselves, for their people, their community, their company, beyond themselves. And so that, to me, is the greatest unlock, is allowing someone to see a greater potential they have for themselves in their lives, their personal lives, as well as their business. Helping see things in others they can't see for themselves, right? It's a little bit like, I think we all need a mentor and a guide, but that is exciting. I get a bit of a proxy high when someone has this aha moment where they unlocked their own story, or
Hmm.
developed something incredible for their brand, or come to a realization of something they were really maybe kind of doing that felt inauthentic, but now they know the right path. So that, we do everything from brand identity, brand strategy, visual content development, digital marketing, but those are all just tools and tactics of getting someone on the right track, of getting them clarity. So I think, to distill it down to one thing, is, well, let me take it back. I'll take the three like you gave me. I think it's three different things. It's a constellation of helping someone understand and align purpose, passion, and clarity. And when you can have all three of those things in sync and in balance, what an incredible life in business and career.
That's a golden I think rule for anyone's good life, I think. Yeah, that's amazing, Chase. Sorry, please go on. I just got very excited when you said that.
No, that's it. I mean, that's kind of the circle. A lot of people have very passionate about what they do, but may not have the clarity in terms of how they're going to achieve success in that particular area. A lot of people have, you know, clarity in terms of, okay, I'm very clear and this is the path I'm going to walk, but maybe missing that compelling driving purpose and passion. And so it's really comes down to helping people align all three of those facets. And I just happen to do it through the lens of brand marketing, which sounds weird and odd, but I think you can apply that to any discipline.
I think, Chase, you've hit the nail on the head, because clarity, purpose, and passion. If you have these three aligned, you can see a massive change in someone's, and also a massive progress in someone's career or the personal life or the health that they're looking into, any aspect of their life. And because I think I have been in situations where one of the wheel is missing, so I can really
Yep.
understand what you're saying, and it's more like an experimenting phase. You keep doing that, and I think definitely you will be closer to what one really wants to achieve. It The key is to keep experimenting and exploring and never stopping. And on this note, I think it has been amazing chatting with you today, Chase, understanding your childhood, your passion, and I think, interestingly, understanding the authentic person, the self that you have been. I think you've been always like that, and your drive to keep learning, being fearful but still taking that step,
Yeah.
the very, very challenging step, I would say that must have been scary. And then when you did that, you have this amazing attitude of saying yes, that you can learn the how, but say yes to what you really want to experiment and try in life, which is amazing. Knowing what you want, pausing, reflecting, and then acting on it. And before we take your leave for today, I just wanted to kind of have a very quick question. Okay, so the thing is that you are a storyteller. You started off as a storyteller, and you like to create stories, purpose, empathy. But then when you are a coach and when you are leading your business, you're also a businessman. How did that transition happen for you?
That I love that question. I love that question because I've wrestled with that quite a bit. Getting into the early stages of building a business and a career, again, wrestling with that imposter syndrome. I don't know anything about building a business, or I've never considered myself an entrepreneur. Um, and I think there's a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation and anxiety that comes from the things that we see every day all around us, media, social media, our peers that project a certain look, a certain voice, a certain way of being that we think an entrepreneur, a business owner is supposed to act like or sound like. And I don't think I ever fit in that mold. I don't think I ever fit any of those qualities. But over time, I've learned that it looks different for everyone. Yes, it's easy to get caught up in this projection of success that social media shares for us. It's seemingly easy for everybody to unlock and scale and grow and have that sort of final measure of success. But not a lot of people are talking about the journey and the pain and the path that gets them there. I think being a business owner, being an entrepreneur looks different from everybody. And you need to be able to own that. Don't be comparing yourself or fearful of what you're lacking and missing. Try to lean into the skills that you do have and that you feel confident in and make your way. We all need people to support us. There's no such thing as someone running a business, I mean, all into themselves. Yes, there's solopreneurs, entrepreneurs. We all need someone in our lives. I don't care if it's family, friends, mentor, coach, team members to build us up. And I think entrepreneurs, there's different types, right? There's those that are ready to burst down walls to kind of solve, this challenge, and this laser focus. There's more of the artist mentality, right? Where they want to kind of
Hmm.
create something in the world. But each of them have their own blind spots. We all have our own blind spots. So instead of worrying about what you're missing, lean into what you're good at, and figure out a way to surround yourself with people that can help you elevate and grow in those other areas.
Jay, this is something that I've picked up today with our conversation, that you are such a genuine person and you own up to everything, and it feels and it sounds and I am happy to know that this is all about being authentic. A person who's able to accept themselves the way they are and work on themselves, they do create a new way of doing things in life. And I think you have done that for a lot of people who are listening to us today, and even for myself. I see an amazing person over here who owns up to what he is. He has a immense learning attitude, and you're there to go and say yes and just create your own niche. I can see that. So thank you so much for being on my first step ever, taking us through your journey in such a candid way. I really appreciate that. And I always request my guest speakers to leave our listeners with a quote or a saying that they really resonate with.
Oh, wow, that's great. So it's from the beginning of a Viktor Frankl book, and believe it's kind of originally kind of a Nietzsche quote, but with any strong why, you can overcome any how. And so, to me, what that means is, with that compelling purpose in your life, that gives you the resilience and hope to continue to proceed, to persevere amidst any challenge, any question, any doubt. And so I think it's got to start with that.
Amazing. With a clear and strong why, you really can overlook the how going forward. And I think that's the whole mantra, that we are also fixated and fussed about the how, that we really do not focus on our why. So thank you so much, Chase, for being on my first step ever. And for all my listeners and viewers out there, I know that you're interested to know a bit more about Chase and his amazing storytelling and brand strategist coaching business. So I will leave the link in the show notes. Do check him out. And if you want to learn about, brand strategy and storytelling, I'm sure that he puts a lot of amazing content out there. So be there, learn, so that you can keep moving forward with the way that you want to. And before I take your leave, I like to say, as I always say, start believing in yourself and keep believing in yourself. See you next time. Please do give ratings and please do write your comments. And you can directly reach out to me on my first step ever _IN. That's my Instagram handle. A little about myself. I have always loved performing on stage, acting, speaking, and just emoting myself. So I use these mediums different ways so that I can connect with people, help them, empower them, infotain them, which is to inform them and entertain them. If you would like to collaborate for any opportunities, more than welcome to connect with me on my Instagram handle. Thank you.